Hello and welcome to Tai'Shar Manethrin, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Sam.
I'm Will.
We're back with our July show update. We're going to let you know all the details about the latest leaks, the latest rumors, the latest announcements, and there have been some.
Yeah.
And just as a general statement, since we are talking about the show, any and all spoilers are fair game. So if you would like to avoid spoilers, maybe tune in next week.
Yeah. And we'll be continuing on in the Lord of Chaos.
Yeah, so we're trucking through. We're almost done with the Lord of Chaos.
So we do have a fair amount of news this month after kind of a few months of things kind of slowing down. The first and most important bit of official news, I think we can agree, is the casting of the wolves of the Wheel of Time.
Yes, absolutely.
I was pretty excited about this, partially because anybody who follows us on Instagram, you may remember, you probably don't. I posted months ago about how there is a breed of dog called a Czechoslovakian wolf dog that is known for being particularly easy to train and very smart, but eager to please. Sure enough, that is what we got. They're
going to be the stars.
Right. They really are. I mean, like, the animals are always the stars to me, but yeah, it's the kennel that they are from. I'm probably going to butcher the way that this is supposed to be pronounced, but it's listed as Z, just the letter Z, Molu S Kennel. And they probably pronounce kennel weird, or it's not weird, different. You can see their website at wolfdogs.cz. Kids, if you want to see what the internet looked like in 2001,
yes,
this gives you a pretty good idea.
I'd say.
Yeah, but you also get
that banner at the top is just beautiful. Yeah. If I would have said the 90s, if there were more like, little animated GIFs all over the place, or GeoCities,
right, and like a MIDI that plays as soon as you
right.
I don't even know. Kids probably don't even know what a MIDI file is these days.
Yeah, I think if you want to see the 90s web, you have to go see the Space Jam website, which is still live.
Yeah, it is. That's pretty awesome. Some folks have dived deep into that website to find the filming schedule for the wolves and speculated what scenes were being filmed. But it's just enough for me to see that they're using real wolves and they look exactly the way that I'd want them to look.
Absolutely.
So that was fun. We also got some official casting announcements, first in a while.
Heck yeah.
Now, here's the thing. They're official casting announcements, but most of these are not new info. If you have been listening to our podcast for any length of time, we have mentioned Lolita Chakrabarti 3 or 4 times, trying to figure out who she is.
Successfully.
Yes. And I had called it, that it was she was Marin Alvear. Then Michael Tuahine, more recently, his identity was leaked, and he is Bran Alvear, and that just works. The two of them totally look like they could be parents to our Egwene. Right. So then we have David Stern as Sin Bui. And this is the only totally new bit of info, but I'm just so happy that Sin Bui made it.
Show.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could see that being a character that was cut.
Right. But he's just one of those fun little kind of extra.
A crotchety old man.
Right. Yeah. Then Christopher Skewer-Reef is Abel Cawthon. That had already leaked and was pretty much confirmed already. Juliet Howland is Natty Cawthon, again, already leaked. And then actually, before this came out, Maddie Simons had been leaked as Daza Conger, and we hadn't gotten to talk about that.
I was going to say, that was news to me, but that's
yes, it was awesome. It was new, and she looks just right for the role.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
They describe her as a very powerful looking woman. Yeah. Also, we got another bit of, I call it official because it's coming from an official Twitter account, but Scanline VFX tweeted that they are working on Wheel of Time. and they have a very impressive pedigree, having worked on Game of Thrones as well as several of the good or better MCU films. I like all the MCU films, but let's face it, not all of the CG is like up to snuff in all of them.
That's a good point.
And so I looked at it and I was like, yeah, it looks like they are handling like the ones that I think of as having more solid CG. And then the DC
in particular that they.
So most recently, I think they did Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Oh, awesome. Okay, yeah. Never during that movie did I watch any CG and went and think, that's hokey.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The big piece of news from that is that they just casually in their tweet say that it's going to have a release date of 2021.
That seems pretty likely.
Yeah, just exactly.
Assuming that they can get back to filming, in the next 6 to 8 months or whatever.
Right, exactly. Well, and we'll have more on that in a bit. But also, and this is not exactly Wheel of Time, but it's Wheel of Time adjacent. The Boys season 2 release schedule was announced recently.
Okay.
And this was interesting. They announced that they will premiere the first 3 episodes all at once, but then release the rest weekly.
Huh. Interesting.
So kind of a hybrid approach.
Yeah,
you get to binge
like because of COVID-19, or if they're really just experimenting with different schedules.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect. I mean, it could be both to some degree.
It's a great show.
But yeah,
shockingly violent.
yeah, definitely not on brand for our podcast. But
not at
yes,
all.
If you've grown cynical to the superhero world, then it's
if you want to see what a psychotic Superman would be like, a terrible person. Superman is an awful person. That's the show.
Yeah, but this new schedule could be a sign of things to come for Wheel of Time, and of course we've talked about it. And I think I think Sam still agrees with me that if it can be weekly, to me I would like that.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great for us to be able to watch it and then record a show and kind of react to it. It'd be fun.
Yeah, we'll see. So that was just interesting. Moving on to unofficial news. So it looks like filming is likely to resume soon, probably at the end of this month or the beginning of August. And there's several pieces of evidence that point to this. The biggest one is the company that handles casting extras for the Wheel of Time over in the Czech Republic has put on their website that filming for the code name, whatever it is, for the W project something, is going to resume in either July or August. I will say I take that as a good sign, but not like solid, set in stone kind of thing. As some people have tweeted this out as, it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, it's just all dependent on if they have any resurgence of cases, I imagine.
Exactly, yeah, and I mean, plus this is not the production house. This is a casting agency that's just trying to make plans, and also the fact that the people that work for them are out of work right now. They're probably trying to also offer them some kind of hope, I suspect. Yeah.
For sure.
So along with that, on the 16th, the Czech Republic reopened its borders for tourism from approved countries. So that does bode well. And then the COVID numbers seem to be remaining on a very slow but steady decline over there in the Czech Republic. They currently have fewer active cases than I believe there is in the city where I live right now. That whole country has fewer active cases.
Wow. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So it seems like they're on a good trajectory.
Right.
And just yesterday, the Czech Republic announced that even though the EU has basically said that Americans aren't welcome because we're all infected. The Czech Republic announced that they would allow exceptions for people working on movies and TV shows. So so Rafe is okay to head back that way, and Daniel Henney and
Rosamund Pike. I guess.
Well, Rosamund Pike would be over in Europe presumably already, but she's not coming from the U.S. I don't think.
Oh, I see. I got you. I wasn't even thinking about.
Yeah,
you're thinking of people coming from the U.S. Yeah, there aren't very many of them, are there?
Right, exactly. That was kind of the point I was making. It was just like it's like Rafe, Daniel Henney, and Jennifer Chiang Garcia, and that may be it.
Sure.
Probably the writers, I guess, and not all of them, but a lot of them, and maybe a handful of like higher up crew, but most of the crew is probably there in the Czech Republic, and so and obviously the extras are. So good news on all of that. Fan-sided reports that an extra who is said to have played and quote Aes Sedai servant was spoke up a little bit and did kind of an interview about what he or she saw on the set, and just more or less just speaking to the quality of everything.
Yeah.
And apparently they're a fan of the books, and that's why they wanted to speak up. But apparently they really feel like the casting has just been excellent. They referred to Daniel Henney as being a perfect stone-faced Lan, and of course Rosamund Pike as this serene, Aes Sedai, and just everybody really nailing their characters. So,
all right.
So that's encouraging. And other unofficial news, and very unofficial, but kind of interesting. So Daryl McCormack, who was in the bevy of casting announcements a few months back when there were just a whole bunch, he was one of the few that they didn't tell us who he was when he was announced. And so people had kind of wondered and theorized a few different possibilities. And in a Twitter conversation, someone said they still want to know who Maria Doyle Kennedy and Daryl McCormack are playing, and they tagged them both. We'll get to a pretty solid theory in a bit on Maria, but Daryl actually joined in the conversation and teased that he was living his best tinker life.
Well, that narrows it down a little.
After someone asked if he was playing Aram. So that seems like a bit of a confirmation that Daryl McCormack is likely to be playing the tinker turned soldier. If only he were a tailor and then a spy, he could have been played by Gary Oldman.
He still could be played by Gary Oldman.
It's true.
I don't care
Gary
how
Oldman,
young he's supposed to be, or if he's supposed to be a woman even. Gary Oldman could play the character.
Gary Oldman could play Bella if he wanted to.
Yes, I was going to say he could play all of the wolves.
We'd already seen some Tinker wagons and some Tinker clothes leaked. This is just further confirmation that we will see the Tinker caravan, in season 1.
Yep.
If he is indeed Aram, is if you're gonna cast somebody, he's the main Tinker that.
Right. Yeah. The rest of them, you're like, who was that got slaughtered by somebody?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know any of their names. I just know a lot of them die.
Right. And so it does seem likely that would be he's the only Tinker we really spend more than a few pages with. So there was this unofficial casting from Redanian. Is that how you say that? Redanian?
I don't know.
Intelligence. It's a Witcher fan.
That sounds
Netflix.
Right. I'm sure I have friends that are yelling at me.
For sure. Right. They don't offer a source for this, and so it's a little dubious to me, but it seems likely, but as far as what they're reporting, I don't know. It sounds a little half-baked as far as the information. But I'm going from least to most interesting. Well, okay, not least to most interesting. I guess least to most
likely.
Because the first guy is actually I've seen this. I love that I get to tell you about this, Sam. So over the past week since this came out, the Wheel of Time, the Twitter of Time community has just exploded with memes about who Phil Snowden is playing because he's listed as Steve. So there's this actor named Phil Snowden who was in Les Mis and The Musketeers, and his character name apparently was listed as Steve, and that is so not in the spirit.
Exactly a Wheel of Time character name,
right? And so there's been all these hilarious things about Steve, the Great Conqueror, and whatever. All these.
Although I have to say, you mentioned about Steve not being a character name. I'm spoiling my a joke I was going to make in a Lord of Chaos episode later, but there's a Karen who's an Aes Sedai.
Oh, well, there you go.
Karen with an I, but anyway.
Yeah. Even a few of our fellow podcasters have changed their Twitter thing to say the Steve podcast. It's all about Steve right now. So,
the Wheel of Steve podcast.
But I feel like it's a code name. I don't know. I mean, right now I'm just picturing a Trolloc named Steve.
I think that's exactly what it better be. Him and Narg, just they're the Bebop and Rocksteady of Wheel of Time.
Yep, yep. Honestly, he could be anyone. I can't imagine there being a named character who actually goes by Steve in the Wheel of Time.
Luce, Aaron, Steve, Kinslayer, Telemon. Like it's just his hidden middle name that no one talks about because he has so many other names. I'm going with Luce Theron. That's my guess.
Yeah. I've got a little bit of a theory, you know, because of who else is on this list, but I mean, it's just no idea really. I mean, we don't at this point, but that's Phil Snowden. Then there's Jennifer Preston, who is listed as Miss Grinwell, who's of course a farmer's wife sheltering Rand and Matt on their way to Camelin. And later on, her daughter, Elsie Grinwell, plays a small but significant role for a few chapters in, I believe, book 3. Mm-hmm. So it shows maybe we are going to get a fairly rich picture from the books of those kinds of moments. Because I had basically assumed that everything between Whitebridge and Camelin was going to be
cut, or like an 80s montage with a robot or whatever. Yeah.
And it could still be, but it seems like, you know, if somebody is listed as playing that character,
and we're going to have a scene at least.
Right. Exactly. So then we have Darren Clark, who in 24 Live Another Day and Da Vinci's Demons, he'll take on the role of Tom's friend Basil Gill. And
Basil Gill. Makes sense that he would show up. I mean, we pretty much, it's another character you could see them trying to merge with others, but I'm glad to see they haven't.
Yes, and you know, he's one of those characters that shows up a lot, but
ends up in Morgaze's entourage randomly.
Right. By the look of this guy, I think it's funny, but I kind of look at him and go, "Yeah, that is Basil Gill." I don't know that I had a firm picture of Basil Gill, but like when I see him, I'm like, oh, that's Basil Gill. Like that's him. Yeah. So next is Izuka Hoyle. And the article that they posted, they just straight up report that this is going to be Dina. But they mention that she's actually listed as Dana.
Oh, weird.
And they're confident that this is just a typo. But I have a theory on this. But to get to that theory, I want to go into this next one, because this one seems to be the most set in stone likely, and also the most interesting to me. Kira Chasna will play the role of a young Swan Sanche. We're talking a 10-year-old Swan Sanche, picking up fish for her dad in the boat. Swan. And
good call. There better be some sort of fishing montage.
Absolutely. This is interesting and will cause a great deal of belly aching from the folks who were already upset about the racially diverse cast, because she is another not white person.
Right.
And I saw somebody post on one of the subreddits dedicated to Wheel of Time, R.I.P. Swan's blue eyes, because she has brown eyes.
Why does that have to be true?
Yeah. Well, let me just keep going for a second, because I have some interesting thoughts on this.
Okay.
But I agree. In a lot of ways, her blue eyes don't matter. Of course, none of that bothers us at all. It's more about what this tells us regarding the casting of adult Swan. And we had previously, I had previously speculated that Doyle Kennedy might be playing Swan.
Since she has that commanding presence look and all that. Right. Has the blue eyes, right?
Right, exactly. And she first appears, it seems like, in the Flame of Tarvalin episode. But now I'm 100% convinced that she is playing Varen. And I'm actually pretty happy about that possibility.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like her look for that, for sure.
Yeah, I think I like her better for Varen. Maria's Irish, and I could totally see Varen being Irish. Now, they better make all the people from Far Madding Irish, since, she's from, I don't know. I don't think anybody probably, I had to look up where Varen was from.
Somebody's gonna keep track of that, but who cares?
It's not, as long as she's not an Illianer.
Right. If she starts talking like a pirate, I'm calling foul.
On Instagram, Katie Sadai, who, if you guys don't follow her, she's, as she puts it, sharing strong opinions about the Wheel of Time, often through her Instagram. And I don't always agree with them. I'll say that, but I always appreciate what she has to say. She wondered if Dana's name wasn't Dina, but instead was a code name like Steve for Swan.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the two actresses, that makes total sense because not only do they have a very similar like skin tone and hairstyle, this is why I said hold up on those blue eyes for a second, because Azuka Hoyle, the actress listed as playing Dana, has the unusual trait of having blue eyes despite being dark-skinned.
Ah, interesting.
And so this would make a lot of sense for several reasons. The younger Swan could either wear contacts or have her eyes changed digitally. And, looking at Azuka Hoyle and thinking of her as Swan, I don't know. I just see it.
I was just thinking, I was looking at a picture of her, and you could see how they could age her up, given like just this hairstyle she has. Looks like it could just as easily complement an older woman. Like if they gave her just enough either CG or makeup to age her up, and then of course when she's stilled and they could remove and just not do that. And I like that. I like that theory. That makes sense to me. It's good.
So I find myself hoping that that's the case. In which case, then I start to wonder if Steve is Ulrich.
Yeah, Dana and Steve.
Right, but as you say it, I could totally see him being Lews Therin, so
right,
because he's got a look for it that would work. So the other interesting thing about this young Swan Sanche is her age. In the one photo supplied, she appears to be about 10. Obviously, we're expecting this to be a flashback, not
you would think it'd be a flashback to like when she and Moraine hear Guitar Moroso give the foretelling.
Right. So like 16, 17, 18-year-old actress. And, considering several episodes back, and I can't even remember who it was now, there was one actress that is theorized to maybe be the young Moraine already. But she's like 19, 20 looking. And so this wouldn't fit for that same timeline. And of course, going by the books, Moraine and Swan wouldn't have known each other when they were that young. Right. So this may truly just be a flashback to Swan's much younger days. And
hard to picture why at this point, but yeah.
Yeah, it would be
keeping an open mind.
Right. Be a heck of a flashback. And while I'm not against it, I'm just curious what this means for the character.
Sure.
It also reopens the question of who could be playing Swan if it's not Izuka. But there was an interview with Jennifer Chiang Garcia, one of our fellow Wheel of Time podcasters. Talk Aran Riyadh scored an interview with Jennifer Chiang Garcia, who is playing the Keeper of the Chronicles, Liana Sharif. Now, I've got to go ahead and correct myself because she explains that it is not Liana. They ask her about it, but it is Liane.
Oh,
so that was the biggest takeaway from this interview.
I mean, that's what they're going with for the show, but I disagree.
Yeah, apparently she goes by Liane, but she did pronounce Lan as Lan when she said his name and not Lon. So
right.
So I just wonder if that was just Daniel Henney saying it kind of weird on that one video. Encourage you to hop over to Talk Aran Riyadh and listen to that episode of the podcast yourself. We love all of our fellow Wheel of Time podcasters, and many of them have been supportive of us. So go over and listen to that episode.
Good community of folks.
Yeah, it's been fun. A few other small points from that interview. Jennifer says she's always gravitated towards science fiction and fantasy, which I like to hear because I want my actors and actresses to be into it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
To not just
see it as like a deconstruction kind of thing, like you get sometimes.
Yeah, this is the job I could get, right?
Pay for my trip to Bora Bora.
Right.
It's a Schitt's Creek reference for anybody.
That's with 2 T's and a C.
It is, indeed.
Yeah. She refers to her character's change from blue to green Anja, which we just recently covered in our recap of Lord of Chaos. And when they ask if she's reading the book, she said she's trying. She sounds like she's kind of ADD. A lot of what she learns comes from the internet. And she said that she was surprised to discover things about Liane that way. I love the image of her like reading the Wheel of Time wiki, like what? Like surprised about her character, like getting spoiled.
Sure, sure. That happens. Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She seemed to know a lot about the characters, so she had either done her research or been adequately informed. And then one other little thing was they asked her about the accent, and actually apparently Rafe had kind of offered some flexibility in that, talked about the possibility of her using her regular North American accent, but she kind of, in researching the character, felt like, and I thought this was interesting, that Liana would have a refined British accent because of this idea that her being Damani and kind of trying to fit in and be part of this more refined kind of community, that maybe there was this effort of her to put on a certain refinement as an Aes Sedai.
Okay.
Either way, I was just impressed with her having thought about, we kind of just passed this point in the books where Lyanna's talking about how she had kind of set aside part of herself to become the keeper of the chronicles, and like all the Damani-ness of her had kind of taken a back seat. But now that she wasn't anymore, she kind of embraced that part of herself. But hearing her kind of recount that is just very encouraging. They're not reinventing these characters. They're very much
for sure
bringing them to life from the books. So
I love that the Rafe giving actors flexibility about their accent. We may have mentioned this before, but just Elizabeth Olsen's Sokovian accent and like how it slowly fades out over a couple of movies because it was so awful, and she would drop in and out of it. And and the character was better for it when they stopped having her do that terrible put on accent. It's like, you just don't always have to have something like that to get immersion. There's plenty of other ways you can create a character without using an accent. Well,
and it always, kind of brings up I guess we'll find this out in the Black Widow movie if it ever gets released, but it brings up the question of why doesn't ScarJo have a Russian accent?
Sure.
It only highlighted that for me. Like,
it's like, if you're going to be consistent, be consistent. But
I mean, she straight up said, "I'm Russian," or at least I was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but anyway,
you could almost see that hand wavy, like because of her.
Sure.
Black Widow training. She was
exactly.
brainwashed into not having an accent.
100%. And I think actually they kind of did prize that a little bit in Agent Carter when they introduced like the apparently the original Black Widow. And so if you haven't watched that, it's pretty good.
Cannot say I have.
Oh my goodness, you got to check that out. I enjoyed those as much or more than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which, by the way, the last 2 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we're in the final one now, are the best.
Really? I think I stopped at like season 3 or so.
Yeah. Well, and somebody was asking me about it the other day, and I was like, season 1 is kind of okay. Season 2 is, it's got its ups and downs. Season 3 is rough.
Yeah.
Season 4 is just, it's okay. But season 5 now, the first half is terrible. And it's the worst. The second half is a lot of fun. And then from then on out, to me, it's just been getting better and better. But anyway,
maybe I'll read a wiki and then watch the last 2.
Yeah. I'd say start with the second half of, I think, 5.
Okay.
And you would want to catch up via wiki on that because there's time travel involved.
Right.
Anyway, then we'll start a podcast on that.
Sounds good. and we'll slog through seasons 4 and 5 for first half of 5.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. That's funny. It is the slog of that show.
Yeah. I remember like when I stopped, I was like, I'm done. This is no fun.
Well, moving on to a mailbag, we got some pretty good feedback on last month's episode. If you missed it, we talked some about racial injustice and what's happening in the world. And we did ask for people to just engage with us, and had a few people reach out on Instagram and just say some really positive, encouraging things.
Oh, I've got to check that out. I don't know if I've read those.
One was a comment, and then one was a DM. I think we lost a subscriber on YouTube,
That's okay.
which is the platform that we have the fewest on already.
Oh, yeah. That's okay.
But anyway, so there was that. But I want to thank Instagram user Micaiah Knox for your very kind, encouraging comment. Also, Kara Donahue sent us an encouraging note. I can't remember if I mentioned her before, but she did send us a light correction on the pronunciation of Birgitta. She's saying that it's not Birgitta, it's Birgitta.
I think I've done that right and wrong.
I told her that we may try to fix that, but just don't be surprised if we don't, because in the South, those two vowel sounds are totally interchangeable.
Oh yeah.
And like pin and pen, those. Forget it.
Pen.
Exactly. It's two syllables. We also got a note from Jason from Utah, who says, so happy that I found your podcast. Just finished book 10 on my reread of the series. My wife even tells me there are other books out there to read. No, there aren't. Jason's wife. But with new hype with the show, I'm really pressing hard to finish the story.
Man. We are too.
And a super thanks for getting into all the names and different cultures of this vast world. I finish one book and then forget by the next book all the names and places. So your podcast is way helpful and enjoyable to listen to. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Jason from Utah. So
awesome.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. That's very kind of you, sir.
Yes, we appreciate it. We'll say it again at the end, but if you write us nice things, we'll give you a shout out. So
heck yeah.
Do it. So the next thing, Sam, I talked to you a little bit about, I had this kind of crazy idea.
Oh, yeah.
In light of our discussion last month about racial injustice and everything, one nonprofit that I believe is doing pretty good work. And regardless, this is a nonpartisan thing, by the way. EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative, if you aren't familiar with them, you should look them up, research them, and you'll find that they are awesome. They're headquartered in Montgomery, Alabama, and there's just some really cool things that they are doing. I was thinking about them, and I was thinking about the current situation with the pandemic, and I got this kind of crazy idea of what if we sold face masks with the red eagle of Manetheren on them, and we wouldn't take any of the money we made from it. All of it would go straight to the Equal Justice Initiative. And so I talked with Sam. Sam was like, "That's my kind of crazy too." Yeah,
I'm all about it.
So in the description of this episode, you're going to find a link that can take you to where you can buy a face mask. And the way I see it, this is helping with two issues. We got this pandemic going on and people need to be wearing face masks. Mm-hmm. Wish that hadn't become this weirdly controversial thing.
But, really, yeah, it's strange.
And I don't like wearing them either, by the way, but it's, yeah. But if you're going to wear one, why not wear one with the red eagle of Manetheren? So if you want to order that, just look in the description of our podcast. There'll be a link there. You can go to order it. All of the profit will go to the Equal Justice Initiative. And we do have to have a certain amount for the order to make. So post it all around to all your Watt friends and let them know we're trying to do what we can to help Equal Justice Initiative, encourage people to wear masks, and also, fly the Red Eagle of Manetheren.
I'm going to buy one myself. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let more gays know that she doesn't own us over in the Two Rivers.
Exactly. We're not beholden. Okay. Wow. That's good stuff, man. That's our show for the day, I believe. And so glad everybody could join us. If you want to reach us, of course, you can find us at tsmpodcast.com, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at podcasttsm. And as Will mentioned, if you write to us, friendly correction, saying something nice, we will give you a shout out. Jason from Utah. Thanks again. Reach out on our socials and email us at stuff@tsmpodcast.com. Again, that's stuff@tsmpodcast.com for email. And thanks again for listening. And until next time, Tai'Shar Manetheren.